Hello and welcome to another edition of Foreign Dispatches on Channels Television. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Anne Nwawadu. As lockdowns crush businesses around the world, we begin in Thailand, where traditional mobile food vendors are making a comeback with the distribution of fresh food produce to residents staying home. And in the United Arab Emirates, some high-tech local farms are eyeing big growth as authorities plow funds in agri-tech projects.
Food, here comes the food, is what echoes through the neighborhood in Thailand as grocery truck vendor Wanapa Yansaran arrives bringing everything from mangoes, dried chilies to chunks of fresh pork to customers who are worried about going out due to the coronavirus outbreak. Many businesses across Thailand have been forced to close down due to an emergency law, and people are being encouraged to stay at home to curb the spread of COVID-19 outbreak, helping traditional mobile vendors to make a comeback. Wanapa spends 20,000 baht, that's about $612 each day, getting fresh produce from the Si Mum Wang wholesale market. She used to earn around $55 in profit before the virus outbreak, but now her income has increased to $67 a day. The wholesale market supplies around 800 trucks with goods and is now working on creating an online platform, plotting the routes of the trucks to make it easier for people to find them. The current situation is beneficial for Wanapa and her customers.
For years, the Desert Gulf Arab states, which rely on food imports for between 80% to 90% of local demand, have spent billions of dollars on agricultural investments outside their borders in the quest for food security. But as the fast-spreading virus piles pressure on global food supply chains and agricultural producers threaten export curbs, local producers hope they can now play a bigger role. Expensive programs to increase food output in the region have in the past run up against the hot climate and lack of water. But the oil-rich United Arab Emirates capital Abu Dhabi had in 2019 approved a series of incentive packages worth 1 billion dirhams, that is $272 million, to support agricultural technology projects.
The COVID-19 virus will surely have a long-term impact. The world as we know it has changed forever. From a macro standpoint, governments will go back to localizing certain vital industries such as agriculture, to ensure supply will never be interrupted.
In April, Abu Dhabi Investment Office said it was investing $100 million in 4 companies that will build facilities in the Emirate, including US-based Aero Farms. Aero Farms is setting up an 8,200 square meter research and development center in Abu Dhabi to help bring fresh fruits and vegetables grown in vertical farms to local markets at an affordable price.
What is it that we have today as Abu Dhabi that we believe we either have a strength in or we believe that we can support and make more robust? And agriculture was one of those sectors, right? So yes, to your point about how it is that we can expand this and develop it and it being a new way of thinking, I think for us it's how it is that we are looking to embrace technology.
The investment office is willing to bet on new technologies at a time when the coronavirus pandemic has changed how corporations work due to global containment measures, including lockdowns.
With the Middle East, you're forced to, because you just can't grow over here unless you apply technologies like this. So yeah, there is interest not just from stores, supermarkets, but also from individuals who could create a smaller version of this at home.
The Abu Dhabi program hopes to create an agricultural innovation hub that attracts like-minded companies.
For the first time in the history of a food delivery company in Russia, over 1 million deliveries have been made within the period of the lockdown owing to the coronavirus pandemic. Take a look.
Demand for food delivery has increased dramatically since Russian President Vladimir Putin extended coronavirus non-working period until April 30. Delivery Club, a food delivery service, broke its own record as their careers delivered over 1 million orders for the first time. That's according to the PR manager, Valencia Filipenko.
The influence of coronavirus became noticeable last week when all the residents stayed at home and did not go to work. Then there were much more orders, which also changed with regard to the territory. There were more orders from bedroom districts, fewer from the center and in business centers.
Moscow remains under strict lockdown, with its 12.7 million residents not being able to leave home except to buy food, get urgent medical treatment, walk the dog or go to work if absolutely vital and their business is open. In this regard, ordering food to home has become a usual way of replacement for going out to restaurants. This is a whole new move for MAXIM URALEV.
Before the virus, I rarely ordered delivery. I like to eat somewhere outside. Since the virus started, I had to order more often.
Italians are known for being food lovers, so perhaps it's no surprise that a nationwide lockdown has meant families across the country are whiling away time by baking. So much so that the demand for flour has skyrocketed more than any time since World War II. One family who live in a small medieval town in central Italy rarely attempted baking bread before the quarantine, which began on March the 9th for the whole of the country. But now they are stuck at home for 24 hours a day. They're getting through between 2.5 to 3 kilos of flour per week as they teach their young daughter how to knead like a pro. Restaurants remain closed as the lockdown continues, but people are encouraged to go to the supermarket as little as possible. As people bake at home for the first time, Italy's traditional flour mills are run to the ground, working 24 hours a day to try to keep up with the orders. The family-run Bigazzi mill in the Umbrian countryside started making flour 150 years ago, and they say demands have skyrocketed. In March alone, they say they had a 500% increase in orders. His staff work hard to prepare the never-ending packages of flour as they make their way around conveyor belts and are packed into trucks to keep up with the orders.
In creating a different world, a British chef is providing 1,000 meals every day to frontliners at work and to people in their homes. The act is in response to social outcry from a hospital asking for help with staff working long hours with no canteen and limited access to food in supermarkets. Take a look.
Michelin-starred British chef Tom Kerridge is supporting NHS workers and vulnerable people in his local area during the coronavirus pandemic by producing 1,000 ready meals a day that are then delivered to those that work on the front line and to people's homes. Kerridge and some friends set up Meals from Marlow in response to a social media post from Wexham Park Hospital in Slough asking for help with staff working long hours with no canteen and limited access to food in supermarkets.
So this is the hub or the centre, the nucleus of where we're producing 1,000 ready meals a day going out into the nearby hospitals of Buckinghamshire, Berkshire and Oxfordshire, and also to the vulnerable and the needy and the people that, just as many people as we can that's locally. And you know, my hope is that what we're doing here, I know is being replicated up and down the country by so many different people that are in the food service industry, just trying to do a little bit to help everybody that needs it as much as we can.
A GoFundMe page followed, and within 5 days the group had raised £140,000, and with that and donations from local food suppliers, they were able to use Kerridge's food productivity facility, the Lush unit, to start making meals for local hospital workers and vulnerable people, with the aim to have enough money and volunteers to keep going for at least 6 weeks.
There was a shout out on social media from one of the local hospitals, Wexham Park, which is in Slough, and their shout out was, please help. Our staff are working 16, 18-hour days. By the time they get to the supermarket, it's all gone. They're tired. They're living off food that is from vending machines, whether it's crisps and chocolate bars, or they're not getting anything. They're exhausted, and there's nothing left in the supermarkets, and they're not cooking anything. There's no canteens. So it was like, okay, what can we do? How do I help? And I've got a unit that produces food for an airline, corporate entertainment for football, Premier League football, and does Formula One. And you go, well, that whole thing is shut down. So you go, what do we do? How can I use this unit? How can we try and do something good here from what we've got?
To date, the project had raised almost £160,000, while the target is £175,000. Among its 8 food-led businesses, Kerridge has 4 restaurants, including the pub The Hand and Flowers, where he won 2 Michelin stars. He said he's spending most days alone in his office trying to work out a plan for what he called a world where it will be different.
For the first time in years, English people are harvesting the fields. Farms across the country are in need of laborers to keep it running. With the restriction on travel bans and the closure of most businesses, UK workers are now interested in working on farms in Britain.
For years, locals in East England's Barnstaple had shown so little interest in the back-breaking work of picking asparagus on David Hartnell's farm. There were seasons when some of the crop had been left rotten in the ground. Now the combination of international travel restrictions and mass unemployment due to the coronavirus means that for the first time in years, English people are once again harvesting the fields.
Normally my cutters, I've got a big family of Romanians who all come over every year and cut the asparagus. So in the past I had tried to get local people to come and cut it, but everyone would much rather work in the pub. In the holiday industry in the southwest here, we've got a massive holiday industry normally, pre the virus obviously.
With the construction industry brought to a halt, Craig O'Neill, a bricklayer, is so desperate for work. Craig is one of thousands of Britons to have answered the call for a modern land army, a reference to the drafting of mainly women civilians to harvest Britain's crops during the Second World War. For years, the physically demanding work has been carried out almost exclusively by foreign labourers, most of them from Eastern Europe. But with travel restrictions in place, this year the majority are unlikely to come.
I mean, I've got 3 children, so I need to be working. I'm self-employed as a bricklayer, so you can't apply for a grant until June. So I had been put onto universal credit for the time being, but it's very minimal. And when you have 3 children, I need to be working.
The Country Land and Business Association, CLA, says around 80,000 jobs need to be filled, and the clock is ticking. Already, asparagus and cucumbers are being picked. In May, it's strawberries, raspberries and spring onions, followed by peas and beans in June.
We've very much been raising it as an issue, this idea of a land army, the need for a land army. As far as the figures, the numbers that we've suggested is that the potential shortfall is around 80,000, and that's a combination of most of that migrant labour a lot of it not being able to get here because of travel restrictions, and then domestic labour and labour generally being affected by COVID in one way or another.
In theory, there is no shortage of willing and available labour. From those furloughed in the lockdown to students released from universities and colleges months before their normal summer holidays and low-risk prisoners freed from jails. Farms across the country have already been inundated with requests for work. One fruit grower in Kent says they had received around 700 applications for 180 positions.
Everyone I know here does rely on kind of hospitality work, and that's pretty much what that's all gone. So I do have an overdraft, so I am into that quite far, but it's just things like usually in Easter I would easily pay that off if I was going to work that amount. And I'd usually pay it off a couple of weeks in summer too, and then it's earning to pay for the rest of the year, so it is a bit.
The question now is whether UK workers will be willing to put in long hours, day in, day out, across the season or down tools as soon as the lockdown is lifted and businesses resume operating.
And still to come on Foreign Dispatches today, a family of 11 living in a small mobile home in California are not finding things easy at all amidst the pandemic. Stay with us. Welcome back. You're watching Foreign Dispatches on Channels Television. We head to California now, where a grandmother who stopped working to avoid contracting the coronavirus isn't finding life easy at all, especially with the thought of catering for her large family.
In Fresno, California, in the United States of America, 58-year-old grandmother Maria Luisa Salazar shares a mobile home with a family of 11. Afraid that going to work could put them at risk of the coronavirus, she has stopped working and is staying at home. But like other undocumented immigrants in the United States, she will not receive the federal government's stimulus payments and is wondering how she will support her family.
I'm not so much worried about staying home or dealing with fights or arguments. We're Latinos and we're used to being surrounded by a lot of people. What I'm worried about is if one gets sick, we're all going to get sick, and it's way too many kids.
Around 10% of California's workers are in the country illegally and paid more than $2.5 billion in state and local taxes last year. That's according to the California Governor, Gavin Newsom. Many do jobs officially designated as essential, including those in the healthcare, food delivery, construction and logistics. But they are not entitled to government's aid. The governor had announced a partnership with philanthropies to create a $125 million disaster relief fund, the first of its kind in the nation, offering up to $500 each to 150,000 adults left out of the federal stimulus package. Americans have started receiving payments of up to $1,200 each as part of Congress' $2.2 trillion aid package, meant to stem the fallout from novel coronavirus outbreak that has shuttered businesses and left more than 10 million people unemployed. Grandma Salazar is more concerned about feeding the family, especially the children, now that everyone has to stay at home.
A 5-week lockdown to prevent the spread of the coronavirus in Colombia is giving residents the opportunity to receive food donations and providing dozens living on the streets with a chance to shower and change their clothing. Take a look.
In Colombia's capital, Bogota, residents receive food donations while dozens living on the streets are given a chance to shower and change clothes. As the city reels out a 5-week lockdown to contain the coronavirus, the government has budgeted 18 trillion pesos, that's about $4.43 billion, to shore up an inadequate healthcare system and fund welfare payments during the lockdown that runs until April 27. But many families who get by in informal industries like street selling, construction and recycling are now cut off from work and are scrambling to make ends meet. Many say they have received no aid at all. Others have been luckier. Soldiers distribute boxes of rice, beans, sugar, salt, canned meat, toilet paper and bottled water to residents of the Egipto neighborhood, whose steep streets wind up the skirts of the Andes. According to officials, giving people a way to shower and change will prevent them from becoming vectors.
With all his concerts cancelled and public gatherings of more than 10 people banned in Finland since March 17th this year, violinist Teppo Ali-Mattila now has time on his hands, volunteering for a scheme that allows the city to redirect employees, mostly from its cultural and sports services, to the Helsinki area in the Netherlands, helping service for the elderly. But he's happy he's doing something to help. Check it out.
81-year-old Venezuelan retiree Carlos Blanco has for more than a year been unable to buy diabetes medication as the country's hyperinflation has left their monthly pensions insufficient to buy even a loaf of bread. Already at high risk in the coronavirus pandemic because of his age, the Blanco's untreated type 2 diabetes leaves him at greater risk of any type of infection, as well as complications including blurred vision or diabetic comas. He's now confined to his home after President Nicolas Maduro declared quarantine, living off the food he and his wife have in storage. Blanco says he feels like they've been left to die. Blanco, like 3 million other Venezuelan retirees, struggles to live on state pensions of 250,000 bolivars, the equivalent of about $3, which can at best buy a few pounds of chicken or several kilos of corn flour. The coronavirus outbreak has sparked concern around the world for the elderly, who are much more vulnerable to the COVID-19 respiratory disease. But the plight of senior citizens is acute in Venezuela following 6 years of brutal economic crisis and chronic problems with power and water supply. In a survey by non-profit groups Convite and Help Age, 77% of Venezuelans over 55 do not have access to enough food, and 1 in 10 go to bed hungry. The United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Aid says 24 of those people are over 50.
From paintings to medical workers to abstract representations of the virus attacking the human body, Basra-based artist Doa Manshed is representing and presenting a series of paintings that illustrates her vision of the spreading of the virus. She also attaches real face masks to her works. This and other related stories coming up next.
Basra-based artist Doa Manshed is presenting a series of paintings that illustrate her vision of the spreading coronavirus. From paintings of medical workers to abstract representations of the virus attacking the human body, Doa also uses real face masks that she attaches to her works.
My work and other commitments prevented me from drawing for a while. Now, I felt that the right time to start painting again had come, and I used this period to present a series of paintings related to the topic currently present in our environment, the coronavirus that's spreading so fast.
The 28-year-old painter usually works for a private tourism company, but is now devoting her time under lockdown to painting. As an artist, she sees her role in illustrating what currently worries society the most, and in raising awareness throughout her community. Unable to organize an actual exhibition due to the restriction imposed on the city of Basra to curb the spread of the coronavirus, Doa is using social media to promote her works.
When an art gallery in southern Russia closed its doors to help curb the spread of the coronavirus, one artist asked to self-isolate there rather than leave his place of work. Sergei Pronin had only just started work as an administrator at the Pushkin Gallery when the lockdown was imposed. He was granted permission to stay and now paints, sleeps, cooks and exercises in the company of a sole companion, a canary named Herds.
I had an idea that it was interesting to work on a series of paintings about the Pushkin Gallery itself.
He has finished painting a view of the gallery and is now working on a piece dedicated to poet Alexander Pushkin, after whom the gallery is named, and whose sculpture features as a centerpiece of its main exhibition. Sergei, who does daily aerobics and stretching in one of the gallery's several rooms, said he planned to stay there for the duration of the lockdown, which is currently in place in Russia until April 30. Museums and galleries have now been among the many venues and businesses to close in an effort to contain the coronavirus, with thousands of cases and over 400 deaths reported in the country. The Dome Gallery, which opened in 1902, operated as a military hospital for a brief period during World War II.
And that's Foreign Dispatches for this week. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to keep up with our top stories. Do it on channelstv.com. I'll see you again next time. Don't forget, keep safe and be well. I'm Anne Onwawadu. See you soon.